Hey folks, think being a geisha was all tea parties, pretty kimonos, and dainty dances by lantern light? Strap in for a reality check. Or better yet, loosen your sash and get comfortable, because tonight, we're stepping into the Geta sandals of Edo-period Japan's most glamorous, overworked, and misunderstood professionals, the geisha. Imagine this. You're 12 years old. Instead of worrying about algebra homework or whether your bangs look good, you've just been handed over to an okiya, a geisha boarding house, by your parents. Because geisha training costs money. And unless you're from an elite family, your parents couldn't afford the makeup alone, never mind the silk kimono collection. So now you're adopted by the house's proprietress, who everyone just calls Mother. Charming, right? Except she's not here to tuck you in and read you bedtime stories. She's here to turn you into a profitable investment. You are, essentially, a stock option in hair ornaments. A walking loan. Oh, the okiya money? Congratulations, you're an indentured artist for life. No pressure. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Before you despair, let's talk about what the geisha actually was and wasn't. Because Hollywood, as usual, got it wrong. A geisha isn't just some highly paid, let's say, escort with a shamisen. She's a performer, a conversationalist, a cultural gatekeeper, and yes, an entertainer in Japan's floating world, that glittering Edo-era nightlife scene where samurai, merchants, and officials went to escape their otherwise incredibly rigid, rice tax-filled lives. The floating world, or ukiyo, was Japan's Vegas meets TikTok meets Parisian cafe society, but with worse plumbing and significantly more debt. It was about living in the moment. Ukiyo literally means the floating world, the idea of drifting through pleasures like sake, art, poetry, and yes, the company of beautiful women. You'd wander into Yoshiwara, the famous licensed pleasure district of Edo, modern-day Tokyo, and suddenly the rules of the shogun's grim, regulated society dissolved. For one night, you could pretend you weren't basically a samurai stuck in bureaucracy or a merchant forbidden from flaunting wealth. Enter the geisha. She's not an oiran, the high-class courtesan. She's not selling her body. She's selling atmosphere. She's selling elegance. She's the one who makes your drunken haiku sound profound, who teaches you how to hold a fan without looking like a sweaty construction worker, who distracts you from the fact that you've spent a month's salary on rice wine and poetry. Think of her as a living Spotify playlist, a stylist, and a therapist rolled into one. Except her services don't come with a free trial. And don't think it was easy. To become a geisha, you trained like your life depended on it. Which, frankly, it did. Dance, shamisen, tea ceremony, poetry, witty conversation, and the art of not rolling your eyes when yet another samurai recited his original tanka about cherry blossoms. That's right, your day was basically a K-pop boot camp with less Wi-Fi, more lacquered wigs, and infinitely heavier clothing. Now, before we dive into the nitty-gritty of geisha life, let's paint the bigger picture. Edo-period Japan, 1603 to 1868, was a time of strict social order. The Tokugawa shogunate had everyone slotted neatly into categories: samurai, peasants, artisans, merchants. Women? Well, legally speaking, you belonged to your family or your husband. Independence was about as likely as finding indoor plumbing. Yet geishas carved out this strange, paradoxical role, technically bound by debt and social rules, but practically some of the freest women around. They could earn, they could influence, they could, occasionally, choose their patrons. In a man's world, that was huge. But don't romanticize it too much. Behind the white makeup and silk layers was exhaustion. A geisha's life was balancing art, performance, and debt like a circus act. You trained, you performed, you smiled, you repeated. Over and over, until your knees ached and your wig left you with permanent neck pain. Fun, right? And let's be honest, modern misconceptions don't help. Hollywood gave us Memoirs of a Geisha, a book written by a man who basically mashed together fact, fiction, and Orientalist fantasy into one long, please misunderstand Japanese culture, festival. Yes, the kimonos were gorgeous. No, geishas were not secret ninja prostitutes waiting to fall in love with American soldiers. Thank you for playing. If you really want the closest thing to the truth, look at anthropologists like Liza Dalby, who literally trained as a geisha in Kyoto in the 1970s. Imagine trying to pass your grad school thesis defense while balancing a wig that weighs as much as a watermelon. Dedication. So, what can you expect tonight in this deep dive? We're not just going to talk about makeup tutorials of the 18th century, though yes, there will be plenty of ashiroi face paint and kimono details. We're also going to explore what daily life looked like for these women. From the brutal apprenticeship of the maiko years, when you were basically a glorified servant with a bow in your hair, to the glamorous, exhausting performances in smoky ozashiki banquets. We'll wander through the hanamachi, the flower towns where geishas lived, and peek into the Yoshiwara pleasure quarter, where geishas and courtesans coexisted like rival apps competing for subscribers. We'll also compare across cultures, because Japan wasn't the only place inventing professional female entertainers. While geishas were serving sake and sarcasm, French salonières were debating Rousseau with powdered wigs, Chinese courtesans were composing poems under moonlight, and Korean kizaeng were memorizing Confucian classics. Different worlds, same idea, brilliant, talented women carving niches in societies that otherwise wanted them invisible. And yes, we'll get into the scandals, the debts, the forbidden romances, because what's history without some mess? Spoiler, if you fell in love as a geisha, you'd probably end up broke, disgraced, or retired early. Love was a luxury you couldn't afford. Literally. Finally, we'll end on what's left today. The geisha tradition hasn't vanished. Kyoto still has working gaiko and maiko, though the numbers have dwindled. Modern geishas are more like cultural preservationists, guardians of dance, music, and etiquette. And yet the myths persist. Tourists still confuse them with prostitutes, magazines still romanticize their world, and geishas themselves quietly keep dancing, playing shamisen, and surviving. So, get cozy. Maybe pour yourself some tea, though unless you're trained in the art of whisking matcha without spilling it on your lap, let's keep it simple. As we drift through the next few hours of this story, remember, geisha life was not glamorous escapism. It was discipline wrapped in silk. It was artistry built on debt. It was a paradox, powerless yet powerful, constrained yet free. Think you could last one day as a geisha? Like the video, subscribe, and comment if you'd survive even an hour in a 10-pound wig while pouring sake for drunk men who thought they were poets. My bet? You'd tap out by lunchtime. Now, let's begin your life as a geisha. You're a child. Not even a teenager yet. Your parents whisper to you one night. They have made a decision. Not a decision you made. A decision made for you. You will leave home. You will enter the okiya, the geisha house, the place that will own you, feed you, dress you, and keep you in debt for the rest of your useful years. Sounds romantic, doesn't it? But in Edo Japan, romance is rare. Responsibility is common. And a daughter can be traded for survival as easily as rice or firewood. You step through the sliding door of the okiya. A nervous bow. A face you will call mother though she is not your mother. The proprietress. She smiles like a merchant inspecting new cloth. You are not a child to her. You are an investment. And from that moment on you are property. Polished property. Trained property. But property all the same. Your training begins immediately. Not with song. Not with dance. With servitude. Sweeping floors. Fetching water. Polishing sandals. Carrying trays heavier than your arms want to allow. You are the little sister in this strange family. Rarely heard. Always scolded. The older girls laugh behind painted lips. Their wigs shining under lamplight. You are expected to admire them. Envy them. Study them. You watch the way they kneel. The way they pour. The way they laugh at jokes that are not funny. This is your curriculum. This is your textbook. And soon the lessons become formal. The teachers arrive. Discipline follows. Shamisen, the three-stringed instrument. Wood against skin. Notes sharp and slippery under small fingers. You practice until your fingertips are numb. Blisters that turn to calluses. A child's hands hardening too soon. Then the dance master. Impatient. His fan snapping open and shut like thunder. Your body must flow. Arms like water. Feet sliding soundlessly. Every mistake corrected with a sharp word or a sharper cane. Grace learned through fear. Then the tea ceremony. Whisk the tea. Every motion exact. Every pause deliberate. A ritual that makes algebra look merciful. And poetry. Always poetry. You are told a geisha must be clever, witty, able to flatter without seeming false. So you memorize haiku. You learn tanka. You practice clever replies to questions drunk men will ask. Training not just your tongue but your timing. Your life becomes rhythm. Wake early. Practice. Practice again. Sleep late. Wake early. Repeat. You are a maiko now. An apprentice. Recognizable by the elaborate ornaments in your hair. A child wrapped in silk. A walking lantern for the okiya's reputation. But the ornaments are heavy. The wigs even heavier. 10 pounds balanced on a skull not fully grown. Your neck aches? You dream of sleeping without it. But wigs are not removable on whim. Your hair is styled once a week. Shellacked with oil. And you must sleep with your head on a wooden block. The pillow made for discomfort. Your first true lesson in endurance. Kimono follow. Layers upon layers. Bright colors. Long sleeves that sweep the tatami. They weigh more than you do. To walk requires tiny careful steps. To kneel requires strength in the thighs of a wrestler. To smile requires forgetting you cannot breathe. But appearances are everything. Your job is to look effortless. Effortless even as your knees buckle. Effortless even as your shoulders burn under silk. The house invests in you, but not for free. Every ribbon, every wig, every lesson is a number written in the ledger. Your debt grows faster than your skills. The more beautiful you look, the more expensive you become, and the more you owe. Freedom is postponed indefinitely, and yet there are moments, small moments, when the weight feels lighter. The first time your teacher nods approval. The first time you play a shamisen song without fumbling. The first time you see a guest watch you with real admiration. You taste something rare. A feeling that maybe, just maybe, you are more than property. But then the bell rings. The tray is heavy again. The lessons resume. And you remember what you are. A child climbing a staircase with no end. The hierarchy is clear. You're lowest. The senior maiko are above you. The gaiko, full geishas, above them. And mother above all. You dream of climbing the ladder. But every rung is greased with debt. Sometimes you whisper to yourself, freedom will come later. Freedom will come when you are established. When patrons support you. When debts are paid. But whispers do not lighten the wig. Or shorten the lessons. The training continues. Kimono. Makeup. Shamisen. And zero sleep. You train. You perform. You smile. You repeat. Until one day, the title is yours. You are gaiko. No longer apprentice. You have arrived. But the cost of arrival is youth spent in service. Childhood traded for grace. And you wonder quietly, was it worth it? The day begins before you want it to. Always too early. Always too loud. The bell rings. The house stirs. Sliding doors open and shut. Feet shuffle across tatami. Voices whisper sharp orders. You rise from the wooden block that passes for a pillow. Your neck stiff. Your wig still intact. You survived another night without rolling over. A small victory. A painful one. You wash quickly. A cloth dipped in cold water. No luxury baths for maiko. Just enough to look clean. Never enough to feel warm. Then makeup. Ashura. White powder ground fine. Mixed with water until it becomes a paste. Applied to face, neck, chest. Porcelain mask. A mask that cracks if you move too quickly. Red lines at the eyes. Black along the brows. Tiny painted mouth. You are transformed. You are erased. You are geisha in training. The paint hides fatigue. Hides hunger. Next comes the kimono. Not one layer. Not two. But many. A small army of silk. First the underrobe. Then the padding. Then the outer kimono. Then the obi. A sash so wide and stiff it feels like armor. To tie the obi, you need help. Older women pull and wrap and knot. They tug until you cannot breathe. They smile as if this is beauty. You nod though your ribs protest. 2 hours gone. And you have not yet had breakfast. The meal is simple. Maybe fish. Pickles if you are lucky. Food to fuel the day. Never enough to fill. Eat quickly. No time to linger. Practice weights. Shamisen again. 3 strings. Plucked until your fingers ache. Your teacher watches. Expression flat. Every mistake a sin. Every note a debt unpaid. Then dance. Arms out. Fan open. Steps measured. The performance for no audience. Except the teacher who rarely claps. Then tea ceremony. Whisk the tea. Pour the tea. Serve the tea. Bow again. Etiquette drilled until it feels automatic. Until you no longer think of knees burning on the tatame. Midday arrives. You rest for minutes. Never hours. Perhaps stitch a torn kimono. Perhaps sweep the courtyard. Always busy. Never idle. Afternoon. More practice. More repetition. Sometimes calligraphy. Sometimes poetry. Sometimes reciting stories you must memorize for later banquets. Your mind stuffed with words you may never believe, but must always repeat. As evening falls, the real work begins. You prepare for ozashiki, the banquets, the reason you exist. Face repainted. Kimono changed again. This time brighter, heavier. Meant to dazzle guests who measure your worth in silk and shine. You walk carefully to the tea house. Get sandals clicking on stone. Lanterns glowing in the hanamachi. The flower town. Streets alive with music. With laughter. With drunken arguments spilling from doorways. Inside the ozashiki. You kneel. You pour salt. You smile at jokes you do not find funny. You clap when a poem is recited badly. You play shamisen when asked. You dance when ordered. You flatter every man who believes himself wise. Your job is not to speak your mind. Your job is to create illusion. The illusion that he is clever. The illusion that he is charming. The illusion that the world outside does not exist. Bars pass. Cups empty. Cups refill. Song sung. Dances danced. Smiles never fading. You watch the clock without moving your eyes. Midnight approaches. Sometimes later. You wonder if sleep will come tonight. Or if lessons will begin again at dawn without pause. Eventually the guests leave. Their purses lighter. Their egos heavier. You bow them out. You return to the okiya. You remove layers. You clean the paint from your skin. Though not all. The white clings stubbornly to hairline and ears. You see a ghost in the mirror. A tired child hiding under silk. You lie down again on the wooden block. Always careful. If the wig shifts, you pay tomorrow. Time lost. Money charged. Eyes close. But rest is shallow. Dreams filled with shamisen strings. With teacher's voice. With the endless command to smile. And then, morning comes. Too soon. Always too soon. The bell rings. The house stirs. You rise. You beat. You dress. You serve. Kimono. Makeup. Shamisen. And zero sleep. You train. You perform. You smile. You repeat. This is daily life. Not glamorous. Not gentle. But relentless. And in the rare quiet moments. As you lie still in the dark. You wonder again. Is this life yours? Or does it belong to mother? To the okiya? To the ledger where your debts are written in ink that never fades? The answer waits for you tomorrow. With the bell. With paint. With the kimono. And tomorrow will look exactly like today. You are no longer just a child with a broom. You are a performer in training. Your body is an instrument. Your voice an accessory. Your mind a catalog of etiquette. Everything you do must be art. Music first. Always music. Because a geisha without music is just a silent doll. The shamisen rests across your lap. 3 strings. A square body covered in cat skin. A pick shaped like a fan. You start. You slide. Notes sharp as winter air. The teacher frowns. Hit. Hours blur into aching fingers. Blisters form. Blisters burst. Calluses grow. This is progress. Pain measured as improvement. You learn songs of longing. Songs of laughter. Songs to accompany dances and drunken games. Each melody stitched into your muscles. Until you can play while smiling at a guest. until you can play while your mind drifts elsewhere. But shamisen is not alone. There's koto, 13 strings, plucked with ivory picks tied to your fingers. A waterfall of sound. Print, elegant, but heavy with rules. Play too loud and you are vulgar. Play too soft and you are invisible. Sometimes you practice shakuhachi, a bamboo flute, breath drawn long, notes sliding like mist, a sound that belongs to temples, but in your hands becomes entertainment. You are a walking orchestra, a Spotify playlist centuries before streaming existed. Except you cannot skip tracks, and the subscription fee is your life. Music is one skill, dance is another. Your body is not your own. It belongs to choreography older than you, older than your teacher, older than the city itself. Movements borrowed from no theater. Arms slow, deliberate, fans opening like secrets, feet sliding without sound. You practice balance. Knees bent, back straight, eyes lowered but alert. Every gesture has meaning. Every pause has weight. The dance is not for you. It is for the guest. To remind them of seasons. To remind them of stories. To remind them that beauty can be disciplined. You dance spring blossoms, summer rains, autumn leaves falling in invisible wind. You dance ghosts. You dance lovers who never meet. You dance time itself, and always in layers of silk. Kimono that restrict, obi that constrict, shoes that slip. Yet you must move as though the fabric floats. If you stumble, you fail. If you sweat, you fail. If you show the effort behind grace, you fail. The dance is illusion. Illusion of ease. Illusion of lightness. Illusion of joy. Even when your muscles burn. But performance is not only sound and movement. It is conversation. The art of words. You learn to flatter without flattery. To answer without answering. To listen without believing. A samurai quotes poetry. You nod as if it is genius. A merchant brags about his fortune. You smile as if impressed. A bureaucrat complains about taxes. You sigh with sympathy, though you owe more than he ever will. Banter becomes blade. Your wit must be sharp, but never cut too deep. Humor must sparkle, but never threaten. You are the partner in every conversation, yet never the center. Games are part of it too. Ozashiki asobi. Banquet games. Clapping games. Guessing games. Drinking games. You master them all. You laugh when you win. You laugh harder when you lose. The goal is not victory. The goal is atmosphere. Because the performance is not about you. It is about them. The guests. Their comfort. Their pleasure. Their illusion that for a few hours, life is lighter. You are entertainer. Artist. And your training covers more still. Tea ceremony again. A ritual already practiced in the morning. Rehearsed again for night. But with different stakes. A clumsy pour can cost the okiya money. A misplaced whisk can cost you face. Etiquette drills never end. How to kneel gracefully. How to pour sake without spilling. How to refill a cup without insulting. How to bow at the right angle. How to leave a room so silently the sliding door sighs for you. You memorize it all. Your body becomes a script, played nightly, and then comes poetry. Memorized lines, recited at will, sometimes improvised, because a geisha who can write a clever haiku on the spot earns admiration as easily as tips. You study seasons, metaphors of nature, the endless comparisons of blossoms to youth, moons to longing, snow to silence. It becomes second nature. You answer questions in verse. You turn jokes into rhymes. You disguise sharp truths in elegant imagery. And all the while, you're watched. By teachers. By older Gaiko. By mother. By guess. Every mistake noted. Every success expected. You are not praised for doing well. You are corrected for doing less than perfect. Discipline builds discipline. Until performance becomes reflex. Music. Fifth. Conversation. Fifth. Poetry. Repeat. Always repeat. So when the banquet comes, and the doors slide open, and lantern light spills across tatami, you are ready. You kneel. You smile. You play. You dance. You entertain. Guests laugh. Sing. drink too much, praise you, forget your name, remember your beauty, never see your exhaustion. And when it ends, you bow, you leave. You do it again tomorrow. A geisha is not just a woman in silk. She is a symphony, an actor, comedian, a therapist, dancer, a living symbol of elegance. But behind the elegance is repetition. Behind the repetition is discipline. Behind the discipline is a child who learned long ago that art is survival. And so you keep performing, night after night, year after year. Kimono, makeup, shamisen, and zero sleep. You train, you perform, you smile, you repeat, until you forget where the art ends and where you begin. A geisha without guests is nothing. A stage without an audience. A song without ears. Your life depends on men who do not belong to you. Men who rent your time. Men who measure your worth in hours and sake cups. Samurai, merchants, bureaucrats, occasionally poets, rarely priests, never women unless they are wealthy patrons themselves. Each guest different, each guest the same. The samurai arrives first, rigid, stern, armor traded for silk, sword traded for fan. But the ego remains sharp. He speaks of loyalty, of duty, of wars you never fought. You nod, you smile, you pour his sake just so. He likes power disguised as courtesy. So you flatter his honor, praise his poetry, pretend his haiku about cherry blossoms is profound. He believes you. He drinks more. You smile again. The merchant follows. Robes rich, purse fuller, hands soft from counting coins. Not swords. He brags of silk shipments, of tea caravans, of deals sealed under red lanterns. You pretend to marvel. You play shamisen while he calculates profit. Your music another line on his ledger. Entertainment expense. But he pays well. Money buys more lessons, more kimono, more training for the next banquet. So you laugh at his jokes. You clap at his riddles. You make him forget he is a merchant and feel for one night like nobility. Bureaucrats come often, low-ranking, high-drinking, complaining of forms, of taxes, of endless ink-stained hours. They envy the samurai. They envy the merchants. They envy everyone but themselves. You let them complain. You nod. You refill their cups. You sing songs about fleeting lives. You make them forget their insignificance. And they thank you with coins. Small coins, but enough to matter. Sometimes poets arrive. Delicate, always broke. They cannot afford you. But a wealthy patron invites them. And they speak in verses that drift like smoke. You listen. You respond in kind. Your haiku sharper than theirs. But you let them win. Because pride is worth more than truth. This is the world of guests. Different men. Same desires. To be seen. To be heard. To be admired. To be flattered. You are not simply an entertainer. You are a mirror. Reflect their greatness. Reflect their importance. Reflect their illusion that the world notices them. But mirrors crack. Mirrors blur. Mirrors tire. And yet you cannot break. Because the okiya counts on you. Your mother expects profit. Your younger sisters in training watch. And your patrons gossip. So you study men as carefully as you study music. Which man wants silence? Which man wants laughter? Which man wants debate disguised as compliment? Which man wants attention without question? You learn their patterns. You memorize their faces. You recall their favorite sake brands. Their preferred songs. Their lucky numbers. Their weakest insecurities. Memory becomes survival. Accuracy becomes currency. Call a guest by name before he introduces himself. He feels powerful. Recall his last story word for word. He feels unforgettable. Laugh at the right moment. He feels hilarious. None of it is real. All of it matters. And then there is Dana, the patron. Not every geisha has one, but every geisha hopes for one. A wealthy sponsor. A man who pays your expenses. Kimono. Training. Teachers. Hairdressers. Sometimes housing. Sometimes more. He does not buy you. He buys your career. But the line is thin. The rumors thick. The expectations heavy. A dana is protection. But also prison. His generosity chains you to his favor. His reputation becomes your reputation. His downfall becomes your downfall. You smile anyway. You accept anyway. Because silk is expensive, and freedom costs more. The banquet itself is ritual. Not a party, not chaos, but performance with rules. Tatami mats, low tables, lantern light swaying, sake poured into porcelain cups, food served in small lacquer dishes. Seasonal, delicate, gone too quickly. Men sit in circles, voices rising with drink. You kneel among them, shamisen across your lap, fan in your hand, kimono bright against shadows. You play, you sing, you laugh, you flatter, you manage their moods. When voices grow too loud, you shift with music. When silence grows heavy, you crack a joke. When anger brews, you distract with a game. You are conductor of chaos, orchestra of egos, silken diplomat, and no one notices. Because if they notice, the illusion breaks. They think they lead the night. They think they own the laughter. But you choreograph everything, down to the angle of your bow. And yet, for all the skill, for all the performance, you remain temporary. Just leave. Banquets end. Coins change hands. Your name remembered only until the next geisha enters. Your art forgotten once the hangover fades. You exist in memory that dissolves by morning, but you repeat it anyway. Night after night, guest after guest. Samurai, merchant, bureaucrat, poet, dana, sing, This is the rhythm of your survival. This is the economy of elegance. And when dawn arrives, lanterns fade, tatami cools, you walk home in silence, silk heavy, feet aching, smile gone, the city wakes, merchants open stalls, samurai march streets, bureaucrats shuffle to offices. And you sleep until evening, only to do it again, because your life belongs to the night, your art belongs to the guests, your survival belongs to the coins they leave behind. And so the cycle turns, banquet to banquet, guest to guest, performance to performance. You train, you laugh, you bow, until one day, you no longer wonder who you are without them. The image is perfect, always perfect, painted face, scarlet lips, silk rustling in candlelight, music rising like mist. This is the geisha the world sees. A living painting, a dream that pours sake, a fantasy in human form. But beneath the silk, reality waits. The illusion is beauty. The reality is labor. The illusion is grace. The reality is training. The illusion is laughter. The reality is exhaustion. Illusion and reality, braided together so tightly that even you forget which is which. To the guest, you are effortless. To yourself, you are endless effort. Makeup hides the truth. Rice powder covers fatigue. Red lips disguise silence. Blackened teeth hide the grind of survival. Kimono whispers elegance. But you know its weight. Layers upon layers. Some days as heavy as armor. Always tight at the waist. Always binding your ribs. Always pressing into skin until breathing feels like rebellion. Silk glows under lanterns. But silk costs coins. Coins you do not earn alone. Coins you owe to Okiya, to mother, to the endless system that owns you. Hair shines under oil lamps, lacquered into perfection, a sculpture of style, pins and combs sparkling like stars. But hair does not rest. Hair does not breathe. You sleep on wooden pillows to protect it. You wake with aching scalp. You endure the hands of hairdressers pulling, combing, burning incense near strands to seal them in place. Elegance hurts. Every detail a sacrifice. And the reality goes deeper still. Smiles are not joy. Smiles are discipline. A trained reflex. Curved lips that hide whatever you feel. Guess laugh. You laugh louder. Guess sing. You clap. Guess insult. You bow deeper. Because the illusion is that you are amused. The reality is that you cannot afford offense. The banquet seems like festivity, but it is a transaction. Every gesture measured in coin. Every performance priced in favors. A geisha does not belong to herself. She belongs to expectation, and expectation is endless. The illusion says you are free. Free from marriage. Free from housework. Free from the narrow role of ordinary women. And yes, that is partly true. You are not a wife scrubbing floors. You are not a farmer bent in rice fields. You are not a maid answering orders. You are something else. Something elevated. Something envied. But freedom is selective. Freedom wears chains you cannot see. You are free from one prison, placed inside another. Silk walls instead of wooden ones. Tatami instead of dirt. A cage that looks like luxury. And so outsiders look at you with wonder. They see glamour. You see debt. They see elegance. You see bruises on knees from kneeling too long. They see art. You see repetition so constant it erases thought. Outsiders envy. Insiders endure. But illusion is not simply for guests. Illusion is for you too. Because without illusion, reality would break you. So you tell yourself stories. You tell yourself you are chosen. You tell yourself you are art. You tell yourself you are respected. Sometimes it feels true. Sometimes during a perfect song, perfect dance, a perfect smile reflected in lantern light. You almost believe the dream. You almost forget the labor. Illusion becomes shield. Shield against exhaustion. Shield against loneliness. Shield against the truth that you are commodity. And yet reality always returns. When the banquet ends, when makeup smudges, when kimono lies folded in the dark, when wooden pillow waits again. You feel it. The weight of silk, the sting of scalp, the silence of an empty room. Reality whispers louder than applause. And still you rise the next night, powder your face, paint your lips, wrap yourself in silk, and become the illusion again. Because the illusion feeds you. The illusion clothes you. The illusion shelters you. Without illusion, there is no survival. This is the paradox. The beauty everyone adores is the labor no one sees. The laughter everyone hears is the exhaustion no one acknowledges. The grace everyone praises is the discipline no one remembers. You live in two worlds, public dream, private truth, one fragile as porcelain, the other heavy as stone, and you balance them every night. Silk draped over bones, smile draped over silence, illusion draped over reality, until illusion itself feels real, and reality feels like a dream you once had. The geisha world is not equal. Never equal. There is always rank, always order, always someone above, always someone below. You feel it the moment you enter the okiya. You are last in line. You are bottom rung. You bow to everyone. Everyone steps on you. Senior geisha walk past with silk sweeping. They do not look down at you. Why would they? You are not yet worth a glance. Hierarchy is law. Spoken in whispers. Enforced in silence. At the top stands the Ototorai, the heir of the house, the favored daughter of mother, the one who inherits the okiya. Her word bends rules. Her smile buys favor. Below her, the senior geisha, seasoned performers, faces known in the hanamachi, names spoken by patrons with pride. They are booked often. They are respected. They are untouchable. Below them, the younger geisha, still rising, still proving, scrambling for clients, praying for a dana, walking the fine line between survival and disgrace. And at the bottom, the maiko, the apprentices, girls painted bright, decorated like dolls, but treated like servants. The hierarchy decides everything. Who eats first? Who chooses kimono? Who speaks in meetings? Who walks in front on the way to the tea house? You learn fast, step out of place, and you are punished. Not always with words, sometimes with looks, sharp as knives, sometimes with silence, cold as winter, sometimes with laughter, cruel as fire. Competition is constant. Banquets are battlegrounds. Clients are prizes. Praise is currency. To secure a booking, you must shine brighter than the rest. Play shamisen smoother. Dance lighter. Pour sake with more grace. Make guests laugh harder. Make them forget others exist. You are not just entertainer. You are gladiator, in silk armor, smiling through combat. Rivalry never sleeps. Behind painted faces, eyes measure, mouths whisper, hands adjust kimono with practiced contempt. Someone says your shamisen is slightly off. Someone hints your dance is too stiff. Someone laughs that your calligraphy looks like a child's. Each word aimed to wound, but always softly spoken. Daggers wrapped in silk. In the hanamachi, there are stars. There are shadows. You fight to be star. You dread to be shadow. Patrons play favorites. Adana chooses one geisha and ignores another. His money lifts her up. His neglect drags her down. Envy grows quietly. Envy burns silently. Envy shapes every interaction. A mother watches all. She balances the house. She chooses who gets silk, who gets plain, who gets the good bookings, who sits home in shame. Her favor is fortune. Her disfavor is ruin. To win her eye, you bow deeper. You obey faster. You shine brighter. You never complain. But no matter how hard you work, someone else is always working harder. Someone else always waiting to step over you. The hierarchy is ladder, but ladder is narrow. Room for only a few at the top. Room for many at the bottom. And so you climb, step by step, night by night, performance by performance, smile by smile. But sometimes, you slip. A mistake in shamisen, stumble in dance, a tear in kimono, a careless word overheard by the wrong guest. One slip, and rivals are ready to laugh, ready to whisper, ready to drag you down. Competition is cruel, but competition keeps you alive. Because without it, you would fade. Without it, you would forget why you paint your face, why you tie the obi, why you kneel on aching knees. You compete, you perform, you endure, because the alternative is obscurity, and obscurity is death in silk. Yet rivalry is not only poison, it is also fuel. The best dances are born from envy, the sharpest songs from pride, the brightest smiles from desperation. Hierarchy shapes you, competition hones you, rivalries carve you, until you are diamond, harder than stone, shining under lantern light. Guests see the shine. They never see the struggle. They never hear the whispered rivalries. They never feel the claws beneath the sleeves. And maybe that is the point. The world outside never needs to know. Only you know. Only the women beside you know. Only the walls of the okiya hear the truth. And the truth is simple. The geisha world is not sisterhood, not family, not gentle solidarity. The geisha world is theater. Every woman an actress. Every night a performance. Every smile a mask. Hierarchy decides the script. Competition drives the plot. Rivalry writes the ending. And your role, your survival, depends on how well you play. So you rise, you beat, you bow, you perform, always aware. Someone is watching. Someone is waiting. Someone is hoping you fall. Hierarchy, competition, rivalry, they break you, they shape you, they make you geisha. The geisha is not alone, never alone. Other cultures shape their own versions, their own artists, their own illusions, different languages, different costumes, same stage. Step into Europe. Salons glitter in Paris. Women host gatherings, not with shamisen, but with conversation. The salonière. She wears lace, not silk. She sips wine, not sake. She recites philosophy. Not poetry in Kangxi meter, but the goal is the same. Make men feel brilliant. Make men feel entertained. Make men return. Her weapon is wit. Your weapon is grace. Her battlefield is the salon. Yours is the tea house. She listens to Rousseau. She debates Voltaire. She flatters nobles. She shields herself with intellect. You shield yourself with dance. Europe admires clever words. Japan admires elegant gestures. Both admire illusion. Different tools. Same survival. Now step into China. Not the salons of enlightenment, but the courts of dynasties. Courtesans thrive here. Poets in silk robes. Singers with bamboo flutes. Women whose talent is art. Whose charm is legend. The Chinese courtesan recites verse under moonlight. She plays qin with fingers like water. She drinks wine and paints calligraphy with a brush steadier than a scholar's. She is muse and mistress, sometimes respected, sometimes dismissed, always balancing the edge of admiration and disdain. You see her across centuries. You see yourself reflected, the sister in another costume. A mask painted differently, but a mask nonetheless. Then turn to Korea. The Kizareng, trained in music, trained in dance, trained in poetry and etiquette. She entertains scholars. She entertains officials. Her art is her survival, her wit her only shield. She enters the house as a girl. She endures endless lessons. She belongs not to herself, but to the system that owns her. Different names, same burden. Salinière, courtesan, Kizareng, geisha, each bound by society, each praised for elegance, each dismissed as decoration, each feared when clever, each silenced when bold, and still survives through art, through illusion, through resilience. Outsiders compare, always compare. This, who was freer? Who was richer? Who was respected? The answer, none were free, none were safe. All were constrained. All were admired. All were used. Men drank their words in Europe. Men drank their songs in China. Men drank their dances in Japan. Men drank their presence everywhere. And men left satisfied, while women returned to their houses. Their rules, their mess. Illusion universal, reality universal, but comparisons reveal more than sameness. They show difference too. In Paris, Salinières shaped thought. Their words echoed in revolutions. Their gatherings changed history. Ideas flowed through their rooms like wine. In China, courtesans left poems still read centuries later, their names tied to literature, their artistry preserved in ink and story. In Korea, Kizareng passed songs from teacher to student, kept traditions alive through generations, their voices woven into national memory. And in Japan, geisha refined movement itself, turned silence into music, turned etiquette into art. They embodied grace so deeply that even now, centuries later, the image endures. Each culture preserved pieces. Each culture erased pieces. Each culture remembered what was convenient, forgot what was uncomfortable, and modern eyes romanticized them all. Paris salons become glamorous gatherings. Chinese courtesans become exotic beauties. Korean Kizareng become tragic heroines. Geisha become misunderstood fantasies. But the truth is more complex. Always more complex. They were women working. They were artists surviving. They were individuals navigating systems not built for them. Comparison is easy. Understanding is harder. So, looking across cultures matters. It shows you that geisha are not anomaly, not strange quirk of Japan, but part of global pattern, a pattern of women turned into symbols, symbols wrapped in silk or lace, symbols praised for art, symbols punished for independence, a pattern of women whose art was real, but whose freedom was limited. You can line them up in your mind. A salinière with powdered wig, a courtesan with flute, Kizareng with drum, a geisha with shamisen. For women, for costumes, for echoes of the same story, different rooms, different languages, same rhythm. They entertain, they endure, they enchant, they repeat. History remembers the illusion. History forgets the fatigue. History remembers the elegance. History forgets the bruises. History remembers the poetry. History forgets the debts. And yet, across borders, across centuries, the pattern remains. Women who could not be wives. Women who would not be servants. Women who became something else. Not free, not equal, but unforgettable. You see them, you hear them, you compare them, but more than that, you recognize them, because their story is not foreign. Their story is human. The lantern light hides much, but not everything. Behind painted faces, there are cracks. Behind silk curtains, there are whispers. And whispers carry weight. Geisha houses thrive on reputation. But reputation is fragile. A rumor can shatter it. A scandal can end it. Debts are the first hardship. Always debts. You owe mother. For food. For kimono. For lessons. For every stick of incense burned in your training. The ledger grows. Your balance never shrinks. You dance for coin. You pour sake for coin. But coin flows upward. To mother. To the house. Rarely to you. You live in elegance. But you are owned by numbers on paper. And debts breed desperation. Some chase a patron. A dana with deep purse. One man's favor can erase years of debt. But his favor costs you. His demands are heavy. His attention smothers. His absence destroys. Others chase bookings. Banquet after banquet. Night after night. Fingers blistered from shamisen. Knees bruised from kneeling. Smiles aching until they feel stitched into your skin. Still the ledger lingers. Still the debt remains. Then there are rivalries. Sharp as knives hidden in sleeves. Another geisha envies your kimono. Another envies your patron. Another envies your song. Envy turns to whispers. Whispers turn to rumors. Rumors that you insulted a client. Rumors that you drink too much. Rumors that you are clumsy. Rumors that you sell more than art. Rumors poison reputation. And reputation is everything. And bookings vanish. And you fade into shadow. But scandal does not always wait for rivals. Sometimes you create it yourself. Forbidden romance. A meeting in secret with a samurai. A letter discovered under a pillow. A glance too long at a man who is not your patron. Love is dangerous. Love is ruin. You lose patrons. You lose face. You lose everything. Some run away for love. Most are dragged back. Debt still unpaid. House still owed. Freedom still denied. Romance becomes tragedy. Whispers become weapons. You return shamed. Your wig feels heavier than ever. And then there is age. Another hardship. Silk does not forgive time. A maiko dazzles with bright colors. Youth itself becomes costume. But years pass quickly. Paint no longer hides fatigue. Dances no longer float. Songs no longer shine. Clients drift to younger faces. You watch them rise. As you slowly descend. Some geisha become teachers. Some fade into obscurity. A few cling to patrons until the end. All feel the same truth. Beauty is currency. Currency that expires. Illness too. A hidden hardship. Long nights in smoky tea houses. Lungs suffer. Tight obi squeeze stomachs for decades. Bodies pay price for elegance. But illness is not excuse. You paint your face even when fever burns. You tie kimono even when ribs ache. You kneel even when legs shake. Because the show cannot stop. The illusion must continue. Behind the illusion, there are collapses. A drunken samurai shouts too loudly. A patron fights another. A tea house erupts in chaos. You sit silent. You smile still. You pretend the world is safe. But you know better. You know safety is illusion too. And always there are stories. A geisha banished for scandal. A geisha sold deeper into debt. A geisha vanishing overnight. Her name never spoken again. Each story told in whispers. Each story warning to you. Careful. Be graceful. Be silent. Or you too will vanish. And yet, despite debts, despite rumors, despite forbidden loves, despite illness, despite time, you endure. Because endurance is the only choice. Because scandal comes and goes. But geisha remain. Art remains. Illusion remains. You paint your face again. You knot your obi again. You pour sake again. You smile again. The hardships do not end. But neither do you. And that endurance, that persistence, that refusal to vanish completely, becomes its own quiet triumph. The world may whisper scandal. The ledger may scream debt. The mirror may show fatigue. But you rise anyway. You perform anyway. You survive anyway. Time changes everything. But not quite. The geisha of today are not the geisha of yesterday. And yet the image lingers. Painted faces. Bright kimono. lantern light, music soft as water. All remain in memory. All remain in myth. But myths twist. To some outsiders, geisha were courtesans, companions for hire, silk-wrapped fantasies sold for coin. To others, they were artists only, purely entertainers, untouched by scandal, untouched by flesh. Neither is true. Both are too simple. The truth lives in the space between. Art and survival, beauty and burden, choice and obligation. Hollywood didn't help. Films made geisha exotic, mystical, tragic. Painted dolls trapped in cages of tradition. Those films missed the debts, the sweat, the endless training, the quiet endurance. They saw beauty, but not the weight behind it. They sold fantasy, and fantasy stuck. Even today, tourists wander through Kyoto, hoping to catch a glimpse, a quick photo of a passing figure in silk. Proof they saw something rare, but often they confuse. A geisha with a tourist in rented kimono. A maiko with a performer on stage. Illusion on top of illusion. Real geisha live quieter now. Fewer houses remain. Fewer apprentices begin. The path is not as crowded, yet it continues. Banquets still echo with shamisen. Songs still rise. Cups still clink. Faces still glow in lamplight. The legacy survives. Slimmer, quieter, but alive. And with legacy comes contradiction, respect, and misunderstanding, admiration, and suspicion. Some see geisha as guardians of tradition, others as relics of a fading world. Some see art, others see commerce. The truth again, to both. Because to be geisha is to perform, always to perform, for clients, for the world, even for history. You smile for memory, you bow for myth. You exist in imagination as much as in reality. And in that imagination, the misconceptions thrive. Kimono, makeup, shamisen, and zero sleep. This is the list people know. They do not know the debts, the rivalries, the collapsed lungs, the bruised knees. They do not see the cracks in paint. And yet, perhaps it doesn't matter, because illusion was always the point. Art was always illusion. Performance was always half-truth. So the myth of geisha becomes just another layer of paint. One more mask on top of many masks. What survives is not the full truth, but fragments. A song drifting through time. A face frozen in a photo. A story whispered in a movie. A glimpse of silk in a crowded street. Not the full life. Never the full life. Just pieces. And pieces are enough to haunt us. The legacy is not clarity. The legacy is mystery. And perhaps that is why geisha endure. Not despite the misconceptions, but because of them. To be misunderstood is to be remembered. To be half-true is to be unforgettable. So geisha linger in the imagination. Not quite courtesans, not quite saints, not quite free, not quite trapped. Always something between, always something more. And maybe that is the truest legacy of all. We have walked through painted corridors. We have knelt on tatami floors. We have lifted wigs heavy as stone, and smiled when we did not want to smile. We have counted debts. We have whispered rumors. We have hidden love. We have endured. And now the night quiets. The banquet ends. The lanterns burn low. The shamisen strings rest in silence. But the image of geisha remains, floating like incense smoke, never vanishing fully. What do we take with us? That beauty was never simple. That performance was never light. That every step in a silk kimono carried weight. And that behind every painted smile, there was a woman holding it together. A girl who began with scraped knees, trained until her fingers bled, bowed until her back ached, laughed until her throat was raw. You trained, you perform, you smile, you repeat, day after day, night after night, year after year, until time itself begins to bow you down. We remember the elegance, but forget the exhaustion. We remember the music, but forget the silence after. We remember the dance, but forget the bruises beneath. And maybe that forgetting is part of it. Maybe the illusion only works if we choose not to see. Because performance depends on blindness. You watch the surface, not the struggle. You hear the song, not the ragged breath behind it. And so geisha endure, half real, half myth, always between what is seen and what is hidden. And that is where their power lives. Because what is half seen haunts longer than what is clear. What is half understood lingers longer than what is known. So when you picture geisha now, you will see both layers, silk and shadow, grace and grit, art and exhaustion. And maybe you will pause. And maybe you will breathe slower. And maybe that pause is enough. Legacy is not about truth alone. Legacy is about rhythm, about repetition, about the way a story echoes. You tie the obi, you paint the lips, you bow, you serve, you perform. And in the performing, you outlast time. The courtyards have emptied, the houses have thinned, but the idea persists. Not courtesan, not saint, not alt, not relic. Something harder to name, something softer to hold. A living contradiction, a walking illusion. And illusions, if they are strong enough, become real. So as this night closes, and your eyes drift heavier, remember that contradictions can be beautiful, that burdens can shine when lit by lanterns, that even debt and scandal and exhaustion can become part of an art so strong. It survives centuries. Beauty and burden, always together, never apart. This is the rhythm of geisha. This is the rhythm of history. And now that rhythm slows, the lantern fades, the music quiets, the story closes. Let yourself close with it. Let yourself breathe deeper. Let yourself fall into sleep. Because the performance is over, and so is the watching.